In October of 1978, Walter Braddock drove a new John Deere 4440 off the lot at the Paxton Equipment Dealer for $32,500. He paid $4,800 down and financed the remaining $27,700 through Farmers State Bank at 9.25% over 7 years. The first monthly payment, due November 15, 1978, was $443. Walter kept the original pink slip, the odometer card from the first oil change, and the financing note in a manila envelope in the top drawer of the kitchen hutch. He said, the day he brought the tractor home, that he would run it until it quit or until he did. For 40 years of that arrangement, neither of them quit. Walter passed in the spring of 2019 at the age of 86. His son Earl kept farming the 1,440 acres of corn and soybeans outside Gibson City, Illinois. Earl ran a 2017 John Deere S680 combine and an 8R410 tractor he bought new in 2019 for $212,000 on a 4-year note. The 4440 had gone under a canvas cover in the machine shed at the end of the 2018 harvest, and it had stayed there. Earl could not bring himself to sell it. 7 years went by without the tractor turning a wheel. If this kind of story matters to you, the kind where the numbers tell the truth and the work speaks for itself, we'd be honored if you subscribed. On the morning of March 18th, 2025, a little before 7, Earl walked out to the machine shed with a thermos of coffee and peeled the canvas cover off the tractor for the first time in almost 7 years. The paint was faded. The decals had bleached white, but the iron was clean. Walter had wiped every surface down with diesel and a rag before covering it in the fall of 2018. Virgil Kemp pulled into the drive at 7:15. He was 71, lean, silver flat top, oil-stained hands that had never fully come clean. He had worked on Walter's 4440 since 1981, when the tractor was 3 years old and the injector pump needed rebuilding. He got out of his F250 and walked into the shed without knocking. If you're still here, subscribe. We don't rush these stories because the people in them didn't rush the work. You got a dealer in your mailbox, Virgil said. He handed Earl a folded brochure. Kyle Burkhart, from the new Deere dealership in Paxton. Called the shop yesterday asking after your tractor. Earl unfolded the brochure. The cover said, Legacy Trade-In Program in gold print. $42,000 trade credit toward a new John Deere 8R410. Payment starting at $4,380 a month on a 5-year note at 6.25%. The MSRP on the 8R, $340,800 before credit. After credit, $298,800. Said he wants to make you an offer on the 4440, Virgil said. Says they've got a buyer lined up in Missouri. He's never seen it, Earl said. Pulled up the original sale record, Virgil said. Knew the serial number. Knew your father paid $32,500 for her. Told me the tractor's got what he called heritage value. Earl looked at the 4440. The hour meter read 9,417. Walter had run it 47 seasons. Every spring, every fall, every snowblade in February. The meter had climbed 200 hours a year, never more. He folded the brochure and set it on the front fender. I'll talk to Ruth, Earl said. Virgil nodded. See what the numbers look like first? I don't need to. Just the same, Virgil said. Ruth Braddock was at the kitchen table when Earl came in. She was 56, reading the glasses on a beaded chain, silver-streaked auburn hair pulled back, wearing a quilted green vest over a cream Henley. She had kept the farm's books for 22 years, first alongside Walter and now alone. And she could run a loan amortization in her head before the second cup of coffee went cold. I ran the numbers, she said, when he set the brochure on the table. On a 5-year note at 6.25% with the $42,000 credit, the monthly payment on the 8R is $4,380. That's $52,560 a year in payments alone. What about fuel and maintenance? Earl asked. Another $18,000 to $22,000 on the new one, she said, a year, plus the Precision Ag subscription on the 8R platform, $4,200 a year to operate the hardware we'd already own. Dad bought his tractor outright, Earl said. He owned it. He did, Ruth said. She tapped her pen against the ledger. The 4440 pays for nothing. It hasn't run in 7 years, but it hasn't cost us anything either. The canvas cover was $84 in 2018, and it's done its job. Kyle Burkhart wants to come out Thursday, Earl said. Let him come, Ruth said. Kyle Burkhart drove up the Braddock Lane at 2:15 Thursday in a silver 2024 Chevy Silverado 2,500 with dealer plates. He was 34, clean-shaven, pressed green, John Deere polo, khakis, silver Apple Watch. He carried a tablet and a leather clipboard. Mr. Braddock, he said at the porch step, I appreciate the time. This tractor of your father's, I'd like to see her if you don't mind. Earl walked him to the shed. Kyle ran his palm over the hood, took 6 photographs with his phone, tapped something into the tablet. She's nostalgic, Kyle said. Beautiful, nostalgic piece of iron. But nostalgic and economical aren't the same word, Mr. Braddock. What's she worth to you? Earl asked. Kelly Blue Book on a restored 784440 with under 10,000 hours is running $22,000 to $28,000, Kyle said. I'm prepared to go $42,000 as a trade credit. That's $14,000 to $20,000 above market. And the 8R? Earl asked. $340,800 sticker, Kyle said. After credit, $298,800. 5-year note at 6.25%. $4,380 a month. How many hours before the first major service? Earl asked. 1,200, Kyle said. Then another at 3,000. Emissions alone require calibration every 600 hours. Earl looked past Kyle at the 4440. 9,417 on that one, he said. Still on the original crankshaft, original block. Yes, sir, but the ergonomics, emissions compliance, precision ag integration, a new 8R will plant rows straighter than any man alive can steer. What if I can't see the satellite? Earl asked. Kyle smiled. That doesn't really happen anymore, Mr. Braddock. Signal's good. Updates are automatic. Earl walked him to the truck without signing. Virgil was in the shop doorway by the time Kyle pulled out. He said Kyle's name once, like it tasted wrong, and spit in the gravel. The next morning, a crew began unloading a brand-new 2025 John Deere 8R410 into the field east of Earl's home place. The tractor belonged to Harvest Legacy, LLC, a corporate operation leasing 14,000 acres across 3 counties. Their field manager was Mitch Creedy, 42, short sandy goatee, puffy navy vest over a gray Harvest Legacy hoodie, aviator sunglasses. He drove a charcoal 2023 Ram 2500 with company magnets on the doors. He leaned on the fence a little after noon and called across to Earl. "That your dad's old iron in the shed, Braddock?" Mitch asked. "It is," Earl said. "I heard Kyle was out yesterday. You signing?" "I haven't." Mitch laughed. "Museum piece, Braddock. Pretty to look at. Can't pull a 24-row planter in a wet spring." Earl said nothing. Mitch laughed again and got in his Ram and drove off down the field road. That afternoon, Earl walked out to the shed and stood looking at the 4440 for a long time. He said out loud and to no one, "Dad, I'm going to run you this spring." Nathan came over at 5. He was 28, clean-shaven under a backwards John Deere cap, Carhartt hoodie. He had finished moving the 2025 seed to the home shed. 1,820 bags of corn at $287 a bag and 740 bags of soybeans at $62 a bag. Total seed on hand, $568,220. "You pulling her out?" Nathan asked. "I'm going to plant the East 80 with her," Earl said. "That's Grandpa's planter in the back. 6-row John Deere 7000, 1979. "I know what it is." "You going to beat Harvest Legacy's 24-row with a 6-row? Nathan asked. "I'm going to plant what I plant," Earl said. Nathan nodded. He did not argue. He had heard his grandfather say the same thing more than once. Virgil spent 5 days going through the 4440. He pulled the fuel lines, drained 37 gallons of old diesel, replaced the filters, changed the hydraulic fluid, set the injector pump timing at 14 degrees before top dead center, re-gapped the glow plugs, and pressure tested the cooling system. The parts bill from Central Illinois Ag came to $1,247.88. The tractor started on the second crank. "Crankshaft's true," Virgil said. "Block's clean. Injection pumps running 94% of factory spec. This tractor could go another 20 years if you don't abuse her." "Walter never abused her," Earl said. "No, he did not." The spring planting window in Ford County opened Tuesday, April 1st, with 3 dry days forecast before heavy rain Friday. The Braddock farm had 380 acres of corn and 520 of soybeans to plant. Harvest Legacy's adjacent field was 680 acres, all corn, contracted to finish by Friday noon, per the lease. Mitch Creedy rolled his 8R410 with a 24-row John Deere DB 7.4 planter into the field at 5:40 Tuesday morning. His crew ran 3 seed semis and a liquid nitrogen tender at 42 cents a pound. He finished Tuesday at 122 acres, the auto steer holding rows within an inch of dead straight the whole day. Earl pulled the 4440 out at 6 o'clock sharp and hooked up Walter's 1979 John Deere 7000 6-row planter. The first pass down the East 80 was slow and careful. He planted 38 acres Tuesday. The tachometer never broke 2,100 revolutions per minute. Mitch stopped at the fence at 7 that evening. 38? he asked. 38, Earl said. I did 122, Mitch said, with one man in the cab. That's a good tractor you've got, Earl said. Mitch grinned. You know what, Braddock? I'll give you credit. At least you're out here trying. Wednesday, the 8R covered 136 acres by 2. Earl was at 44. At 2:20 p.m., Mitch's 8R threw a DEF system fault, code 3361. The tractor derated to 25% power. A service truck arrived at 4:05 p.m. The DEF dosing module had shorted against the hydraulic return line. Part, $612.50. Labor, $180. Downtime, 3 hours, 45 minutes. Mitch finished Wednesday at 168 acres. His per-acre cost climbed from $43 to $58 on one service call. Earl was at 86 acres by dusk. The 4440 had never missed a cylinder. Thursday opened at 48 degrees, overcast. Mitch had the 8R running by 5:12 a.m. Earl started the 4440 at 5:30. Doyle Keppel, the precision ag technician, came out at 8 a.m. to verify the DEF module repair. 39, dark frame glasses, blue John Deere service polo, tablet in hand. He verified the repair, checked the Starfire receiver, gave Mitch a thumbs up, and left in his white transit van. At 11:40 a.m., the National Weather Service revised the forecast. The rain system had accelerated. Ford County would see heavy rain Friday at 6 a.m., not 2 p.m. Every farmer in the county had 18 fewer hours than he had planned on. Mitch kept running. The 8R was down to 512 acres still to plant. Earl was at 124 acres with 256 still to go. At 1:47 p.m. Thursday, Mitch's 8R lost GPS lock. No signal flashed red on the cab screen. The auto steer disengaged. Mitch switched to manual, tried to drive by eye, came out 3 feet off line. Harvest Legacy's lease specified 30-inch rows with plus or minus 2-inch tolerance. 3 feet was not within tolerance. Mitch stopped the 8R and called Doyle Keppel. Doyle came back at 2:15. He pulled up the diagnostic on his tablet. Starfire receiver's fine, he told Mitch. John Deere pushed an over-the-air update last night, version 24.2. Some receivers aren't reauthorizing the subscription this morning. It's a known issue. Fix has to come from corporate. When? Mitch asked. Could be 2 hours. Could be till tomorrow, Doyle said. Mitch stared at the motionless 8R. I've got 400 acres to plant and rain at 6 a.m. I'll call corporate, Doyle said. That's all I can do. Doyle made the call from his transit van. Corporate confirmed the issue. A patch would be pushed within 24 to 36 hours. There was no manual override for the auto steer subscription. Without reauthorization, the 8R was not going to plant a straight row. Mitch climbed down out of the 8R at 2:48 p.m. and kicked the front tire. Across the fence, Earl was still planting. The 4440 had no GPS. The 4440 had no software. The 4440 had a steering wheel and a man who had planted this ground for 40 years and knew every hedgerow, every terrace, every soft spot in the soil. He steered by the fence posts and the windrows left from the previous fall. Earl planted until full dark. He finished Thursday at 218 acres. Mitch sat in his Ram at the end of the field and watched the 4440's single cab light moving slow across the dusk. He did not laugh once. Thursday night at 9:40 p.m., Kyle Burkhart called Earl. Mr. Braddock, he said, I heard about the software issue at Harvest Legacy. This is not representative of the 8R platform. The patch will be issued imminently." "I'm sure it will," Earl said. "Can I come out Friday and talk through the 8R's advantages again?" Kyle asked. "Friday? It's going to rain, Kyle." "Saturday, then." "I'll be working Saturday," Earl said. Earl hung up the phone. Ruth looked at him across the kitchen. "He'll be back," she said. "He will." Friday morning the rain started at 6:04 a.m. Earl was in the field at 5:20, planting the last 162 acres on the East 80 and the South Quarter. He ran the 4440 through a fine mist for 40 minutes before the sky opened. At 9:15 a.m., he pulled into the lane. Total corn planted, 380 acres. Beans were still ahead of him, but the corn was in the ground before the weather turned. Mitch Critty did not start the 8R Friday. Corporate had pushed the patch at 3 a.m., but the 680-acre field was now a saturated clay pan. Harvest Legacy would not plant another row for 11 days. Mitch would end up 112 acres short when Des Moines audited the lease at the end of April. The contract penalty for late plant worked out to $430 per acre, $48,160 exactly. Crop insurance would not cover the delayed plant because the cause was documented as operator equipment failure. Another $61,400 Harvest Legacy would absorb on top of the lease penalty. At noon Friday, Howard Fitz came up the Braddock Lane in his 1998 Oldsmobile Cutlass. He was 79, wispy white hair, tortoiseshell bifocals on a silver chain, wool newsboy cap, tweed jacket over a wool sweater. He had been the Ford County Ag Extension agent from 1976 to 2011. He had written the 1978 Soil Survey. He had known Walter Braddock for 40 years. "Earl," he said, "word travels." "Word does," Earl said. "Walter's tractor running all right?" Howard asked. "Ran all week," Earl said. Howard nodded. He looked past Earl at the machine shed. "I priced out a new 4440 equivalent one time, about 1995, he said. Came to $19,800. Walter bought his for $32,500.78. You know what that works out to, Earl, over 47 years? Tell me, Howard." "About $691 a year of tractor," Howard said. "Not counting fuel, oil, parts. $691 a year for a tractor that's still running in spec." "Kyle wants $4,380 a month for the 8R, Earl said. "Yes, he does." "That's $146 a day, Howard." "Yes, it is." Howard looked at the rain. "You know what the lease audit will say about Harvest Legacy's 112 acres?" he asked. "What's that?" Earl asked. "They'll owe roughly $48,000 in contract penalties," Howard said. "Plus, crop insurance won't cover the delayed plant. That's another $60,000 or more out of pocket. Call it $109,000 total." $109,000 on a software problem, Earl said. $109,000 on a tractor that couldn't plant without permission from corporate, Howard said. Earl did not smile. Howard did not smile. They stood in the rain a moment longer, and then Howard got in his Cutlass and drove home slow down the wet gravel. Pauline Mercer called Ruth Saturday morning. Pauline was 62, parts counter manager at Central Illinois Ag, silver bob, reading glasses on a chain, green company vest. She had looked up the 4440 parts catalog at Ruth's request on Friday afternoon. "Ruth, honey," she said, Every hard part for a 78 4440 is still in the system. Engine gaskets, injector pump kits, starter solenoids, hydraulic pumps, clutch kits, PTO shafts, wiring harnesses, 30 minutes on a truck from the central warehouse in Davenport. For how long? Ruth asked. For the last 7 years, 15 years, I don't know, Pauline said. Deere's kept stocking them because there's still enough of them running. An injector pump kit runs $642. A clutch kit, $1,100. A hydraulic pump, $1,890. Every part available same week. Ruth wrote the numbers down in her ledger. Kyle Burkhart came back Tuesday the following week. He had a revised offer, $46,000 trade credit. Earl sat across from him at the kitchen table and listened politely. "Kyle," he said when Kyle finished, "here's what happened last week. Your patch broke Harvest Legacy's planting schedule. My father's tractor did not break. It planted 380 acres of corn in 4 days. The work is what I pay for a tractor to do." "I understand the sentiment, Mr. Braddock," Kyle said. "It's not sentiment, Kyle." Earl put one hand on the table. "A tractor is a tool," he said. "A tool does the job or it doesn't. When I turn the key on the 4440, it runs. When your 8R's receiver can't find a satellite, your 8R is a $340,800 paperweight." "That was one incident," Kyle said. "It was the wrong incident," Earl said. "Rain doesn't care about software patches." Kyle closed his tablet. "I don't need the new 8R, Earl told him. "I have an 8R, Kyle. 410 horsepower, bought in 2019 for $212,000. Works fine. I don't need a second one." "I see," Kyle said. "And the 4440 is not for trade at any price." Kyle nodded. He packed up his tablet and his clipboard and walked out. He did not come back. Ruth set a cup of coffee in front of Earl. She sat down across from him and opened her ledger. "I figured it out, by the way," she said. "Figured what out?" Earl asked. "Walter's $32,500, Ruth said. "In 2025 dollars, that's about $152,000. The new 8R is $340,800. That's 2.24 times what he paid in real terms for a tractor with more things that can break. 2.25 times the cost," Earl said. "And that doesn't count the software subscription," Ruth said. "Your current 8R has a Precision Ag subscription. We pay John Deere $4,200 a year for that." "For what exactly?" Earl asked. "To access the hardware we already bought." Earl looked at the ceiling. "Dad bought his tractor," he said. "He owned it. He opened the hood. He fixed the hood. The tractor ran. Nathan came in from the shop at 7. He had a streak of grease on his left forearm. He sat down at the table, and Ruth poured him a cup of coffee. "Dad," Nathan said, "that 4440 of Grandpa's. I want to learn her." "All right," Earl said. "Virgil says he'll walk me through the injector pump timing next month." "Good. You going to keep running her spring and fall?" Nathan asked. "Every spring and every fall until I can't," Earl said. "Then you're going to run her." Nathan nodded. "Grandpa bought her for $32,500. $4,800 down," Earl said. 7-year note at 9.25%. Paid her off in January of 1986. "And she's still running." "She is." On the last Saturday of April 2025, Earl and Nathan washed the 4440 in the drive with a garden hose and 2 5-gallon buckets of soapy water. Virgil came by at 4 with a gallon of diesel and a red rag, and the three of them wiped her down together. 3 generations of maintenance on one tractor, if you counted Walter. The canvas cover went back on at sundown. Mitch Creedy's 8R sat for 9 more days before Harvest Legacy finished the 680 acres. Des Moines docked the lease $48,160 for late plant. 3 weeks later, Mitch was reassigned to an Iowa County operation. The software patch held that summer mostly. Kyle Burkhart was promoted to Regional Sales Coordinator in June and transferred to Bloomington. His replacement at the Paxton dealership never called the Braddock house. Earl Braddock ran the 4440 again for fall harvest prep. In October, he used it to move the grain cart at the outer edges of the field where the S680 couldn't reach. The tractor turned 9,461 hours that fall. Walter's original crankshaft was still true. Howard Fitz passed away quietly in August at 80. At his wake, his daughter told Earl the last thing her father had said about the farm was, "Walter's boy still runs the 4440. Doyle Keppel eventually left the Paxton dealership and took a job on a vegetable farm outside Rantoul. He told Ruth one Saturday at the hardware store that he'd come to believe the best farm equipment was the kind a man could fix with his own hands without calling corporate for permission. On the first Saturday of November, Earl stood in the machine shed with the canvas cover folded over his arm. He looked at the 4440 a long time. He pulled the cover back over her, weighted the front corners, tied off the rear. He closed the shed door. He walked to the house through the cold wind, and Ruth opened the kitchen door for him without needing to look up from her ledger. The 4440 sits in the machine shed in Gibson City, Illinois, under a tan canvas cover. The hour meter reads 9,461. The original pink slip from October 1978 is in the manila envelope in the top drawer of the hutch. The tractor has cost $691 a year over 47 years, and it has paid for itself so many times over that Ruth has stopped writing it down.